Well, I think the two goals that we conceded in the first half were soft goals. Um, Second phase, set piece, and then a cross with I think one striker in the box that could easily be handled, right? And we were marking space on that play versus marking the man. Um, got back in the game again second phase set piece as well. Um, but then I think in the second half made some changes, changed it up, and I thought we really for the next probably 40 minutes put ourselves in positions to tie that game up. And I think it's a microcosm of how our season's been, where we have like 20 some odd chances on goal and can't seem to make the play that tips the scales, whether it's crossbar, whether it's Vic not sliding across the front of the goal on a ball that's rolling in front of, whether it's Juan fouling on Vera's free kick. So these are moments, and that's what I always allude to, making plays. We can get down to the final third, um, but someone's got to put the biscuit in the basket. And again, at 2-1, we had ample opportunities to tie this thing up. And then if you tie it up with the momentum we had, I I bet that we'd have a good chance of winning the game. But again, when you don't put the ball in the back of the net, even with the amount of pressure that we had and the chances that we created, you're going to find it very difficult to win games.
Regular season Champions Cup, Leagues Cup, and this, I think it's 40 games in now. Is it safe to say the team you saw out there tonight really does, so that ever really does summarize the things that you did well all year and well tonight, the things you did poorly all year, you did poorly tonight?
Correct. You, yeah, that's it. I mean, the goals were soft, right? And the chances, again, we haven't had a problem creating opportunities. It's just finishing them. And that, again, that's been the story of our season. And those are how thin the margins are. The margins to get back in the game would have been, it was right there for us. Um, but yeah, I think it's a microcosm of our season.
That's something that can be coached up internally, given another year, or is that something that requires talent to be brought in from the outside? Or
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, right? I think again, guys that score goals, you can find them. They're out there, and I think and it's the biggest difference between last year and this year is we had guys that were prolific in front of goal, and what that does is it also affects the way you defend. And a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, what do you mean you can defend? No, no, no. If there's so much pressure because your offense isn't scoring goals, then it starts to go on the back. You can't be wrong, you can't get it wrong once in the back because now you're conceding a goal. And so the pressure on the back line increases when there's not guys up front that are going to be scoring regularly every 2 games, and I think so we'll keep coaching it up, but I think it's something that we've got to look at and deal with moving forward.
is Cruz ad-libbing on that set piece? Is that something you work on?
That is not that is
Subtle?
that is not something we work on. That is not something we work on. As a matter of fact, I can't, again, that was ad lib, man. And it wasn't, it was a bad moment to ad lib, especially when the ball hits the back of the net. And if there's one guy you don't need to really move the wall for, the wall is going to move. It's Brian Vera.
Did anybody stand out tonight? Anybody thought especially strong performance?
Yeah, I thought Hoffa once again was elite. I think Jay Glad had a really good performance. I'd say Vera had a good performance, other than the moment where he let the guy head the ball. And so like these are the things are, and it's like it's so difficult to like judge performances because it feels like there's one moment where it ends up defining the game. But for 89 plus minutes, really, really good, and so I thought, there's moments where Diego was good. I thought there's moments where Diego was good. There's moments where Vic was good. There was moments where Gozo was good. But at the end of the day, it's like you gotta put the ball in the back of the net. There's gotta be a play that lends itself to a goal. Uh, You know, so
Did foot start the front foot in the right way, or did you feel like that was a bit of a passive start and Portland really got a hold of
yeah,
it?
and to be fair, like, just looking at it and looking at the two halves, you know, I I think we were down our right side. We couldn't get anything going in the first half. With Yedlin, Diego, and Gozo, we were just we couldn't get anything going. And that's why in the second half we went to a 4-2-2-2, get two strikers up there occupying their floor, get our outside backs breaking the shoulders of their wingers, and having our pivots become the three man, and that ended up being the secret sauce to really get a stranglehold of the game. So I think it could have been a bit tactical in the way we approached it. We were going to make that decision at halftime, but it felt like, or before half. But there's too many moving pieces to get that information across. So at halftime, we did it, and again at 2-1, we're still in the game, and we created chances. So,
Matty Casey.
Hey, coach.
hey, Matty.
So with the Gozo Victor sub for Agata and Cruz, was that a piggyback on the tactical change you just made? What were you looking specifically for from Agata and Cruz, and did you and your staff kind of get what you wanted there?
Yeah, no, I think we got him in a good position. I thought we had him pinned. And again, Willie's really good in the box when we have teams pinned. So his box movement and his willingness to get his head on the ball is really good. Again, I think for me, Cruz has still been a question mark. He scored quite a few goals. When he was in Europe, he's had a stop and go type, 8 or 9 games with us. He scored some goals in the box with his head. And so really just adding fresh legs and guys that have scored goals. And so I think from Willie, we got that. I don't know that we got that with Juan. I think he had a tough night. So that part, but I think Diego really turned it on in the second half. And were integral into getting the ball in dangerous areas and unfortunately just didn't capitalize on it.
And the group of players have been through a lot, obviously, this year. It was actually just a month ago. The team was in 12th, and just under a month ago. So what was, if you don't mind, what was your message to the players in the locker room after the match? What would you say to fans who are melting down right now?
Yeah, no, again, like as to the players is I'm so grateful for the commitment and the effort to show up every day and work. When we had, I don't think anyone believed that we get into the playoffs, right, and get into this game. As you rightly pointed out, we were 12th with a few games left, and I'm sure there's quite a few people writing us off. And so my comment to the group was, listen, the game of soccer is decided by the finest of margins. And on the day, we had more than enough opportunities on both sides of the ball to make plays and score goals. But what I am most happy about is they never stopped believing, they never stopped working, and just grateful to work with a group of guys that really care about their craft. And obviously, we all have to improve. Whether myself, the coaches, the players, we've all got to take this moment to reflect and see where we can make gains moving forward. But I think it's a special group when you'll see teams in these positions that don't keep fighting and are scared of big games. We had a win against Colorado, we had a win against Austin. We had to get a draw against St. Louis away from home, and these guys never quit fighting, never quit believing, and for that I'm super grateful.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Yep, Manny.
Caleb Turner.
Yeah, I just want to ask you about Emeka real quick, Pablo. You brought him on at the half. And so yeah, I guess the question is, what led to that move, and then also the decision to not start him over the last few games?
Yeah, I think to not start him in the last few games, I think Noel and Ojeda have been really working really well together as a tandem, right? So going to playing against Colorado, Austin, and so I wanted to keep that continuity going. I thought those two have done a really good job in getting important results. And so that was the reason why. And I thought Emeka coming in at halftime, and a part of that was Noel. Again, I think he got a yellow card in the first half. It looked like he was on the cusp. But again, I think Emeka came in and probably played his best 45 minutes of the season in this game and created some really good opportunities on offense. just smothered the field defensively. And again, I think it was a really tough year for him. I think it was an up and down season where, I'm looking at the LAFC game at home, and there's the first 2 goals we concede were moments where Emeka knows he could have done better, right? And so, but to come out after not playing all these games and step into this moment and really own it, I thought he was one of the brightest players on the field. And so, players' careers are always up and down. They're never going to be straight line like everyone expects. And I think this has been a really good learning moment for him, and just really proud of how he responded tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Pablo.
Yep.
Brant Gowell.
Pablo, sorry about the loss there tonight. RSL, you look to be in the second half with the Anelli sub. You seem to be really effective, and you look like you seem to have Portland on the back foot. Were the
Mhm.
subs for Agata with Agata and Cruz, were they scheduled, or was it a decision in the moment?
No, we looked at it, and again, I think Gozo and Vic were doing a pretty good job, and it was just injecting, some freshness into the group, knowing that Willie's really good in the box and scores with his head. I mean, the chance he had off the crossbar was huge, right? And I think the sub that I think didn't pan out was obviously a Juan Cruz. I think he didn't catch up to the speed of the game. So that one didn't work out, but I think Willie did a really good job. And we just, again, Vic was getting into good spots, but it looked like he was a bit leggy. And then Gozo, obviously, running the channels, but again, just trying to get 2 guys who have, a track record of scoring goals in the box. And I felt like, because, as you rightly pointed out, we had them pinned. And so we just want good box movement and then obviously a finish. But I think that eluded us tonight.
And then Berea came in earlier, and you had a savvy vet like Russell. Would you maybe sub him in a little earlier, or what were the thought process there with those 2 subs?
Yeah, again, I think Johnny Russell, his position's on the right. So if we're going to take him out, or if we're going to put him in, it's basically moving Luna. Um, and so I think, the other part too is, Jesus has been scoring goals, and I think there's something to be said about a guy that's in really, really good form. He's just scored, in the last game they played from that left side. And so that was just the thought of putting a guy that's in form at the moment. And then obviously Johnny coming in, moved Diego back into the midfield, and you can argue that we could have done that earlier, but again, I'm going on what I know for sure, and that's that Jesus has been scoring a lot of goals with the Monarchs, and he's a great run of form, and so that was a decision there.
Caliscan's been playing really well. Obviously, he earned a starting spot. Do you think going back to Portland, playoff game was a moment a bit big for him?
Yeah, maybe. But I don't think. Yeah, I don't think it was just him. I think it was the group really at the start where we just didn't get a hold of the ball. The game was too transitional. And so, yeah, I mean, you could say that. I mean, that's a question for him. That's that. But what I saw was, he was on a yellow card. He committed another foul that could have been a second yellow. And I think it's just playing with fire, especially when you got a guy like Emeka that again, he's been training great. He's been waiting for the opportunity, and he was deserving of it. And obviously, I thought he was, again, like I said earlier, Emeka played his best game, his best 45 minutes of the season tonight. And again, I think I'm so proud of that response, given that it hasn't been easy for him this year, but I think he finished off the right way. And so that was the decision going into the second half, was bringing him back into the game and changing it. And I asked him just to be aggressive on both sides of the ball, and obviously that chance he had from whatever it was, 10, 12 yards out was spectacular. And if he would have finished it, I mean, that's a whole different conversation. We're having a whole different conversation here.
And lastly, from me, it's early, but so what's the postmortem look like for the season review, and then maybe evaluation for next season? Maybe a little bit of timeline. Probably take a little bit of time off, but what does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brant. We'll circle up. This is obviously really fresh. We'll get together with Kurt and Jason and figure out the best way to move forward with this group. Um, Obviously, there's some tough decisions to make, um, but I think we'll get together in the next couple days and figure out how to best move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Pablo.
Thank you.